Hey everyone, Mithrandiel here, joined by ALuckyBum today. Haven't seen him in a while. How you doing?
I'm good. Hey, what's up, everybody?
So we are super stoked about Star Wars. We're both going to go check it out tomorrow. Got our tickets and everything, and we thought it would be a good idea to just kind of chat a little bit about the movie, about some theories we have about the story, where how we think it might kind of present some interesting narratives for the fans and things like that, and just generally get hyped and get excited for it. So ALuckyBum, do you want to just kind of kick us off? What are some of your hopes or expectations for this movie when it comes to, we can just start with like the central protagonist, right? For Rey and Kylo, what do you think we'll be seeing with those two in particular with this movie?
So I guess I exactly have that. I have two different things that I'd like to talk about. I have my hopes,
right,
which I would like to happen, and then I think what is more likely to actually be true or close to true that may or may not be as exciting as what my hopes are. So framing that for the main characters, I think what everybody expects to happen is to have like a role reversal, where you have Rey kind of starting off as this really wholesome, good, hardworking person that everybody just naturally is drawn to and just seems so blameless and sweet,
right.
but also brave and kind of independent, like this perfect character, basically, almost to a fault. Like she was
Right.
She
That
was
was one of the
so
things. Yeah,
perfect.
that was one of the things they talked about when the first movie came out. They were like, she is almost too good, right? Like, she's almost too light side. Yeah.
Like, can you think of a single flaw in anything that she did? One flaw, like a mistake or anything that she did.
Yeah, and it's no. I like at first. I mean, granted, I haven't had my rewatch of the first one yet. Maybe I should have done that before tomorrow, but no, I can't think of it. And again, that was something that a lot of people brought up was, okay, we get it. Like we've got this strong female protagonist, but some people also said that it went a little too far. It was a bit too Mary Sue kind of syndrome, where she was faultless, blameless, and too perfect.
Yeah, it was like a two sentence consideration when she gets the droid BB-8, and the guy's like, "I'll give you all the MREs you can have, to trade for the thing." And that was like the one moment of like, "Oh, is this kind of a scumbag person, or is she awesome?" Okay, she's awesome. Okay, that settled it. We're never going to address that ever again.
Right. We're never going to draw her morality into question again.
Nope.
The droid issue handled it.
So I think that might be a little bit of a tell that you want it to be where she is definitely wholesome and good to start out, and Kylo Ren is definitely a DB and kills his dad and is just an angsty youngster who can't get his stuff together and is just totally bananas, like off the edge. And I think the expectation is that they cross ways and Kylo slowly comes over to the light side and Rey slowly is tempted by the dark side. I think that's the expectation. I think more people are kind of like anticipating that than any other kind of configuration of what the plot line is going to be in the next couple movies. I don't think that's where they're going to take it. I am hoping, I guess this falls in the hope category, that they play with those expectations a little bit. And I don't think it should just be as simple as, no, Rey's actually really good and Kylo's really bad, and it's just like a classic good versus evil. I want and expect them to kind of question even what is right and wrong, what is light and dark. Like,
and I mean, a big part of this, right, is, and we've talked about this at length, as obviously outside of the podcast as well, is, the fact that Luke is essentially a Gray Jedi, right? And so for those who aren't as familiar with the Star Wars canon or the larger universe, who may hearing this term for the first time, what kind of in a nutshell, what is a Gray Jedi? What does that mean? What space does that occupy in the Star Wars universe?
Sure. People actually know more Gray Jedi's than they think, just didn't know what to call it. But I think our first example chronologically in the Star Wars canon is Qui-Gon Jinn, who, in his kind of rebelliousness of being a Jedi master, he wanted to kind of do things his own way. He wasn't a quote unquote by the book Jedi. And there's a few conversations about that in A Phantom Menace. He wants to train Anakin, even though everybody else senses that this could be major bad news, right. And he knows that it's bad, could be bad news, but maybe it's still worth it. I even wonder, like looking back on it, if like the whole Anakin turns out to tear down both the Sith and the Jedi was kind of what Qui-Gon Jinn was hoping for, without specifically hoping for it, not like maliciously.
Like,
but
he
like,
wouldn't wish for the death of all of his all the Jedi and the younglings and everything.
He couldn't bring himself to do it, but he knew Anakin could.
Yeah, you're like, you could do it. I'm too much of a wuss, but you could do it.
But I think what ended up happening is kind of a reflection of what Qui-Gon was kind of looking for. Like, there's something more. Like, what if we've been doing it the wrong way for thousands and thousands of years?
Right.
And he's the first one to kind of discover the way to commune with the Force and be a Force ghost. And so that kind of points to, hey, maybe there's more to learn. It's not just, we know everything about the Jedi and this is how you should be it. Careful, don't go over the Sith. They just do everything the opposite of us. And so he was probably the first example. Then you have a couple other examples in Star Wars. You have Ahsoka Katano, I think, something like that. She is Anakin's Padawan in the Clone Wars, the cartoon. Yeah. She ends up kind of leaving the Jedi and being truly a Gray Jedi. She's not necessarily doing evil things, but she just doesn't align herself with the normal Jedi Order. She just realized through a series of events that it's not so cut and dry. It's not just good and evil.
Right.
And so she kind of fell away. Another one is Mace Windu. A lot of people don't know this, but Mace Windu actually started off as a Sith, or somebody at least considering the dark side, and then ended up switching over to the good side. That's kind of the retroactive story behind his purple lightsaber is you take blue, you take red, you mix it, you get purple. And obviously he was, one of the leaders on the Jedi Council during the prequels. And so more on that later. But there are definitely Gray Jedi in the history of Star Wars. And now Luke is kind of doing the same thing.
Right.
He kind of has a lot of the same characteristics of early Gray Jedi, of Yoda and Ben Kenobi in The Empire Strikes Back are imploring him to continue his training, even if it means sacrificing Han and Leia. And they're like pretty serious about that point of like, this is a mistake, they think, for him to leave to cut out to save his friends. Maybe it works out, maybe not, but it's definitely not the move right now when, he's in jeopardy of being tempted by the dark side and just adding to the Sith's power.
Right.
And obviously he's more human than that, and he cares about his friends too much, and that's why we root for him. But that was kind of the early signs of he doesn't necessarily align with just the cold, harsh logic of the Jedi Order of just always do the thing that's best for everyone, no matter what type of a thing.
Yeah.
And then finally he starts to rebuild the Jedi Order, and then Kylo Ren messes it up and murders everybody, and he feels like, oh, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I need to rethink this.
Maybe I'm really bad at this whole Jedi thing after all. I'm pretty much the worst. So we have then we have all of these examples of the Gray Jedi then kind of murking up this previous dichotomy that seems so clear between light and dark. And that's really the kind of space that, I agree. I think, having this conversation, that that is something that both Rey and Kylo could definitely bring to make the narrative more interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think both of them are dealing in The Force Awakens with a lot of baggage. Like, we know a little bit more about Kylo Ren's past story. We still have some questions, but we know that he's kind of tying his future with his past, with identifying himself as a true disciple of Darth Vader. That that's the way he thought he should have been doing it, and that Anakin turning to good at the end was a mistake on his part, just being swayed over by his own son. So I think he's just the blood of Vader runs through me. He's very much into, I need to make a name for myself, but not just by myself. I need to attach it to something already in the past, this legacy of Darth Vader. And we know that Rey has issues with her past too, because we know a lot less on the specifics, but somehow she's supposed to be connected to Luke's lightsaber, whether it's through some Force connection that we're unaware of, we're going to find out, or because of relation, blood relation. But it definitely seems like what they're doing right now isn't working. Her desire to stay on Jedha isn't the solution.
Right.
Kylo Ren emulating Darth Vader is not the solution. So I think in this next movie, what we're going to see is them breaking away from the old, whatever it is, their old assumptions of the mythos of the Jedi and the Sith, and kind of the high place that they put it in their mind, and they get a taste of what it actually is. And I think it's going to be bitter to both of them.
Right.
And I think that's when they're going to realize that maybe they're both kind of headed down this Gray Jedi path, that it's somewhere in the middle, that's the true balance of the Force that we've heard over and over and over. You got to have both.
Yeah. And then in theory, if they were to both travel down this Gray Jedi path, then their ultimate confrontation would be with Snoke. And then also, we haven't really seen too much in terms of if there's a Snoke-like figure on the light side of the Force. But I would be really interested if, I think it's a little late to introduce a figure like that, but if there was some sort of ultra righteous, embodiment of the light side, much like Snoke is sort of the this ultimate dark force, and these two Gray Jedi basically team up and okay, we're going to take out the extremes on both ends. We're going to take out Snoke, and we're going to take out this other guy. But again, I don't think there's anyone like that, because like you said, Luke is is a Gray Jedi essentially. And there's not really anyone else left. So,
well,
unless they're hiding out,
it could be Yoda's ghost.
Yeah.
In Force Awakens, when Rey's having her
her steroid moment.
Yeah, she hears Yoda's voice in that. She hears Obi-Wan Kenobi's voice. She hears Yoda's voice, and so I might even expect at some point in one of these movies for them to talk to or commune in some way with either Obi-Wan Kenobi's Force ghost or Yoda's. And that'll be interesting to see if they kind of weave that in. Luke, it could still be Luke, because he's reluctant to train her, but she's going to try to convince him to train her. Right. Maybe he'll think this is his last hurrah, I need to correct what I did type of a thing, like a redemption type of deal. I would not be surprised at all if Luke dies. I've got 70% chance odds that he's going to die, but.
Well, yeah. And at this point, since we know kind of at this point, the fairly regular nature of now Jedi's leaving behind their ghosts, as you said, like their Force ghosts, like you were talking about. It almost lessens the impact, like watching him die, like, oh bummer, like he's dead, but really he's not. Like you will absolutely hear his voice again. You'll absolutely like. I feel like the audience at this point has enough of an understanding of the Force and the general idea of how that works, that death isn't the end, right? That he'll come back more powerful than Rey would ever imagine, or whatever, that kind of thing. So right. That kind of I don't know, that kind of takes the edge off for me, at least a little bit. I mean, of course, if it happens, it's going to be like, oh my god, but at the same time, it's like, okay. So
it could be that Snoke is after that same information. I think that because there's been hints and stuff that Luke specifically went out to go find the original Jedi documents and stuff. I'd be like, okay, we've been doing it the same way for a long time. What if we strayed over time from what the actual Jedi truly intended early on? And so he might have access to information.
He has like the Dead Sea Scrolls for Jedi or something like that. Yeah, he has the Apocrypha of Jedi.
I think that's why in the whole first movie that everybody is so crazy trying to find Luke. I think Snoke has some kind of whisper. He has some kind of like rumor that Luke has this information, and that's why he wants to hunt him down. It's not simply because Luke could end up training a bunch of people to challenge Snoke. I don't think it's that. I'm like the Emperor's motivations in the original trilogy. I think he's after specific information, and he's looking for that next level, that like level up in Force, that there's something they're both missing. And so I think that's kind of where it's headed. I think there's going to be kind of a reawakening of like our expectations of what the Force can do. I think there's a lot more Force powers that they're going to introduce to kind of signify or show that this Gray Jedi is not just a Force user who doesn't know what side to fight for.
Right. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm just ambiguous, but it's like, no, like they occupy a certain space, and in that they unlock unique powers, right? Like, because there's Force lightning on, the dark side, and then what's the light side have that's like what's unique to the light side? Like
nothing really, I guess. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, the general idea is like, that maybe there would be something within that gray space that would be,
Force back rub.
Yeah. Force, like, working out the knots, and Snoke's like, oh yeah, that's perfect. So yes, now, okay, so hyped for all this, hoping that Gray Jedi will get more of a center stage. We're also seeing some interesting, of course, I mean, there have been theories floating around since the prequel days in early 2000s, late 90s, kind of like adding to the canon and things like that, but kind of re-sparked since Force Awakens and all that came about. We were talking about a pretty interesting one the other day that you were going over with me. You watched a YouTube video and you're like, this looks crazy, but it actually isn't as crazy as you initially think.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a hope I have this is true. I mean, my actual prediction that this is even 50% true is maybe 2%.
60% of the time.
Long odds. Never tell me the odds.
Yeah.
It's the theory that Snoke is somebody we do know, specifically Mace Windu. So stay with me here. Don't turn off.
That's the sound of thousands of people wandering away. No.
The idea goes as such. So in episode 3, toward the end of the movie, when Palpatine zaps Mace Windu for one final time, right after Anakin cut his arm off, he like force pushes him out with the lightning out of the window. And they like play back the video footage of like he's still alive when he gets pushed out. I don't know about that, but the argument is such. How many Jedis have we seen fall from incredible heights and live, and not
Right.
even like get hurt that bad? And you add them up, it's like Obi-Wan fell an incredible distance on that Utapau when Order 66 was released. You have Anakin jumping out of a speeding car in Episode 2 and just landing right on another speeding car, like,
Yeah.
and he fell hundreds of feet.
Yeah.
You have Luke falling down the Cloud City center of it. Totally fine.
Yeah.
it's okay. Like,
merely a scratch, and like walks it off.
so they got like the Force squirrel air gliding thing down. If Mace Windu could one-handed grab onto a car, his face would have been totally disfigured with the lightning. I mean, he got a huge blast of it.
Right.
The lightning disfigured Palpatine himself pretty badly. He got very white, was one thing. So, like, it would make sense that he would have a different skin complexion after such a thing. And he was a Dark Jedi at the beginning, and so the theory is that part of the reason Mace Windu hated Anakin so much was because he thought before Anakin came around that he, Mace Windu, was the chosen one. Because the prophecy was that the chosen one would bring balance to the Force, and that was kind of his fighting style, was incorporating both light and dark side fighting, as well as his meditation and just stance on the whole matter. He was all about kind of combining the two into kind of a pseudo Gray Jedi that was still on the Jedi Council and was widely respected. And so I think he thought that internally and just had it out for Anakin right from the get-go, all the way up until Anakin cut off his arm. And I think it was partly jealousy or whatever it might be. And so he would have a grudge against the Skywalkers because Anakin sliced his arm off.
Right.
He'd also have a grudge against the Empire and Palpatine. And even though the First Order looks a lot like the Empire as far as like aesthetically, that's more for us, the fans. They've hinted already that they didn't like the Empire, like they were doing it wrong. And the First Order is doing it the right way in a different way. Mm-hmm. And so motivations line up. Everything's kind of would make sense as far as him
lined up in quotes, you know.
Yeah.
Again, it's a very, very slim chance, but yeah, that was kind of an interesting one.
They continue on that like he could be Finn's dad.
Yeah, that was where I got lost. I mean, like the Snoke part, I was totally down for, but that part, I was like, what?
I actually think it's more likely that Mace Windu is Finn's dad than Mace Windu being Snoke. But
yeah,
the idea would be is that he had a son. They tested his midichlorians or whatever and figured out he was kind of a squib. Like he probably wasn't going to have much force power, or at least not as much as they hoped. But he didn't want to just kill him or send him off, so he puts him into the stormtrooper like program as a baby and tells Kylo Ren to watch after him. And if you go watch The Force Awakens, you'll notice that Kylo Ren knows who Finn is before he even switches sides or makes a change of heart. So they're like, oh, a stormtrooper ran away in a TIE fighter. And he's like, oh, is it FN 218? Like it was right off the top of his mind. He looks at him specifically right after the little opening scene when they're in the
village killing everybody
in the village. Yeah. And he like gives him a good long soul search. And Snoke makes a comment to Kylo about the Force Awakening. And we all assume that they were talking about Rey. But Rey hadn't really done anything at that point in the movie. It's like 15 minutes into the movie, and she hadn't discovered any of her Force abilities or anything like that. Uh-huh. The person that had a change of heart or started doing things differently or had like a lot of internal like struggle was Finn. And so the the expectation here is that they were actually talking about Finn to like keep tabs on him because he could show like some force ability, and they just want to keep tabs on it. And that's why Kylo Ren gets so mad when he hears that Finn helped them get the droid away on Jedha, when he goes crazy and like destroys the console on the ship.
Right. That has forever been preserved in GIF format.
Right. Before he even knew about the girl. They then say, "Oh, with a girl," and he's like, "What girl?" So he's super duper mad about this one trooper going crazy. Like, is he just mad that a random trooper is going traitor, or is it that specific trooper?
Right.
So I think there's something there with Finn's past. Maybe it's it's
well, my
Mace
only thing
son,
is like
or
how,
just,
my only thing is how old is Kylo and how old is Finn? You know, like I feel like they're pretty much the same age. So like, would he have been told? And Mace would have been gone beforehand, right? I mean, Kylo, like assuming that we go by the canon, like Kylo would have been, or Mace would have been gone before Kylo was born.
well, no, this is all part of Mace Windu being Snoke.
Being Snoke, yeah, okay, so
Yeah,
that happened.
and so
like,
so
it
he
happens
he
post,
wants
yeah,
he would prefer to just raise his son to be his Padawan.
Right.
He gets a bum son, so then he goes and finds somebody.
My
Gets
son's
Kylo
broken,
Ren.
has no Jedi power.
And he specifically wanted somebody like Kylo Ren because Kylo Ren has the light and the dark in him. He can like feel that he's not only powerful, but he's got this like conduit to both sides of light and dark, like running through his veins. And so he could raise him, or start training him alongside the same age as his own son, and he doesn't matter. But as soon as he's like sending Kylo Ren out to do his bidding, he'd be like, "Hey, oh, by the way, watch out for FN 218." Doesn't even have to tell him who he is, but Kylo Ren could know that that's like his job is to look after that guy.
I see. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah. So those are the theories that we've kind of encountered in the wild of the internet. Do you have a theory or two that you're hoping, like maybe they're a bit more out there, or maybe not so out there, but like that you're hoping to see come to fruition in this next movie, besides like the whole Gray Jedi thing? Any revelations that you're hoping to see?
Well, I have some questions that I'm definitely going to be trying to fill in as we watch the video. So, and there's a lot of them. Who's Rey's parents?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on there?
Right.
I want to know how the First Order rose to power. Like, they seem like they have an unlimited resource of something. Because they're able to make a Death Star inside of a planet, which is crazy. And then this new ship that they're supposed to have is like a Star Destroyer factory. Like, it's massive. It's huge.
Yeah.
Like the old Executor or whatever it was, Executioner or whatever class that was, of the really super duper big.
The huge one that wasn't that in Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back.
And Empire Strikes Back, yeah. It was just
like
huge.
10 times that size.
Yeah. Crazy.
So how? Like, where that stuff? And
they got a lot of space bucks.
Yes.
To be able to buy all that stuff.
And then all the stormtroopers, they're just raising. They're like kidnapping or wherever they're at, like the adoption center, getting babies and then raising them, brainwashing them to be stormtroopers. Like, that takes time. So you're looking at like 20 years or so that at least that they've been building up, and they aggressively did that, like from the start, to like, go find me millions of babies and we're gonna start like,
bring me millions of babies.
So it's like the First Order was just this massive daycare for the first like 5 years of its order.
You will all be my warriors, but first break these graham crackers on the line, and like hand them out. Give everybody their Capri Suns and Kool-Aid boxes and put them down for their nap. Well, okay, so but I mean with the stormtroopers, initially they were all the not Boba Fett, but like that bloodline, right? They're all clones, right? That was the whole thing. They're all just clones, and that's how they like mass produce them. So
I
is
mean,
it
for like the first 10 years after the Clone Wars, but eventually they started using different clones and then just stopped using clones altogether by the time Episode 4 came around.
yeah? So then clones are like out of the picture because they're all different now. That's part of the reason. Like when the storm, when Finn took off the helmet, they was like, oh yeah.
And they
That's
made a
part of
point to point out that in the First Order, or
Right.
in Awakens, because they're like,
a whole bunch
oh,
of
I
different.
told you
Yeah,
we should have used clones. He's like, no, my babies are perfect.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, definitely some questions to me. Mine are largely along the same lines. I mean, I'm really interested in who Rey's parents are. I am really. I also I kind of had to suspend disbelief, for the whole First Order thing. Like, and what's really interesting is, you talked about the Death Star in Force Awakens, and there have been a lot of parallels to the original trilogy so far, and apparently in the early reviews that we're seeing, the tradition's kind of carrying on with this one. It sounds like. In terms of story elements that are very similar to Empire Strikes Back. But at the same time, they also, first of all, a lot of people are commenting on the length. It is
Yeah.
long. It is a
Yeah.
long film. And some argue that it is too long. But I don't know. I don't know if Star Wars fans will complain about, a good meaty film of Star Wars goodness. But there are definitely some parallels to Empire Strikes Back, but in that length, in that very long film, they say that there are quite a few kind of curveballs for the audience. So, and I don't know if some of those curveballs are some things that we're expecting, like Luke's death, for example, or if those curveballs are other things that we're expecting, like kind of tossing this idea of just flipping roles. Rey goes evil, Kylo goes good. I saw that coming a mile away. But if they actually get into the nitty gritty and kind of explore the middle ground, I wonder if that's like people are like, "What do you mean there's a middle ground? Like, what do you mean there's a gray area?"
If I was writing the movie, if it was my job to like figure all this stuff out, I would probably make it so that in the first trailer they did the goofy editing where it looks like Rey and Kylo are going to work together.
Right.
Like he like puts out her hand and then it cuts to her
they
looking
cut
at somebody
to make it look like join me, like we're either like he's luring her to the dark side or they're pairing up for some reason. Yeah.
So here's my theory. When the day that trailer came out, one of the directors who was let go or like whatever, they had a bunch of directors working on different films, and somebody that was in the know that was a director from one of the movies, I think maybe the third one, and then they finally settled back on J.J. Abrams for the third movie.
Right.
He said, if you don't want to be spoiled for the Last Jedi, don't watch this trailer. Like it's a major spoiler inside that trailer. So either he's telling the truth, or they're going to an old director that they fired and asking him to like talk about a red herring. I doubt they would do that.
Right.
So I think that everybody's going to assume that, oh, that's just a trick on editing, and they're doing like a reverse red herring of like, nope, that's actually what they are going to work together. Joke's on you guys. You thought we did special editing. We didn't. We just gave you a major spoiler in the first trailer.
And Ashton Kutcher pops out. Y'all been punked. Yeah.
So I would do that. I would actually have Rey and Kylo Ren work together to try to figure out the whole Gray Jedi thing.
Right.
And then maybe in the confrontation with Snoke, one of them double crosses the other and kills them. Either Rey double crosses
Kylo,
or Kylo double crosses her.
And Rey double crossing Kylo would be, I think, the sweeter of the two.
Yeah.
Because like you wouldn't expect it, right? Like this flawless Mary Sue from Force Awakens all of a sudden becoming like, oh, that would be interesting. That'd be
And then what if, because in The Force Awakens,
Mm-hmm.
they marketed it as Finn was the Force user,
Yeah.
right?
That
And that
was
was
the
the
red
big
herring. That was
surprise.
the red
Yes.
herring in the Force Awakens. That was like, oh, he's like a stormtrooper. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that.
So what if it was two double red herrings?
Yeah.
What if that whole first movie is to just set up Rey as the villain out of nowhere, and we think Finn is just some
Schmuck.
goofball?
But he's
Yeah,
really like the most powerful of them
but
all, or
not
something.
even the most powerful, but our only hope.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so then he's the one that ends up having to go with Luke. Luke maybe, is disturbed because he against his own will trained Rey, and the same thing happened again. And now Finn is his only hope, and he's got like some bumpkin of a trainee, like at the beginning of this movie, they're supposed to be training, and Rey is supposed to be just awesome, and then he has to start training Finn, and he's just like, oh my gosh, this guy is so behind the
Yeah.
ball, and he's not doing
Ray
it.
is like the perfect student and like so
Yeah,
powerful, and then meanwhile Finn's the last hope, and he's like, okay,
yeah.
now lift that rock or like lift that pebble, and he's like,
I can't do it. I'm a squib.
I'm a squib. I can't do anything.
and
Yeah.
then and then how crazy would it be if the epic battle in the third movie is Finn versus Rey, and Finn had like such a crush on her and like went to save her, and
Yeah.
like that would just be so emotional because like he cared for her, and it would just be a lot more
It would
intricate
be
and interesting than
yeah.
just good versus bad.
It would be Obi-Wan versus Anakin all over again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. Oh, I like it. You should be in the movie business.
Yeah.
Well, we will find out tomorrow. I'm super stoked. Lucky Bum, thanks for chatting with me about it, and we will do a post Last Jedi wrap up. So we'll follow this up with another conversation similar to this one, and we'll see where the chips fall. And see what if any of these theories came out, or if in the end it was Jar Jar all along.
Yeah.
Just
Misa
Snoke after all. No. All right. Thanks, Lucky Bum, for joining me and chatting about this.
Yep.
All right. Talk to you guys later.